Hello, that side, but I feel that someone verified that we can hear us. Suddenly go. Yeah. Good morning, Rachel. Anyone hear us?
What TEA does.
So yes, was that an affirmative? You guys can hear us over here? Okay, can someone test their microphone for us, please? And just say hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Hello, hello, good morning.
A little bit of a lag, but we've got it. Let me start the PowerPoint presentation. You know, that's not bad. Good morning.
The volume up on that end for us to hear them.
Okay.
When we hear them, but we don't
Yeah.
hear them.
Okay, so the volume's up for them. So that they can hear us.
But can we keep
For us, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Okay.
ready?
Very good.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this morning. My name is Millette Leap Green. I'm the Director of Student Financial Aid at UT Southwestern Medical Center and the current chair of the Financial Advisory Committee. Really appreciate everyone joining us here in Austin. It's been so long since we saw some faces. It's really nice to connect. Thank you guys to everybody joining us on Zoom as well. Just to go over a couple of housekeeping type things. Please remember that we are streaming on YouTube live, so just keep that in mind. Anytime you can have your camera on, it's very helpful, helps us connect best with each other. So we appreciate that, committee members. Please do keep your microphones muted. For those of you at home joining us on YouTube, joining us on Zoom, please stay muted unless you do wish to talk. And you can use the hand raise feature, raise your hands if at any point in the discussion we would like to hear from you. So just use that function and we will try to get to everyone. Interesting people. All right. So we'll do a roll call. If you'll just let us know you're here. And then we'll get to know some of our new members. Jackie Adler. Here. Mary Escobar. Heather Fountain. Yeah. Michelle Hill.
Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to fix that.
Cecilia Jones.
Mary Escobar is here.
Thank you, Mary. Got that.
I'm sorry, who did you call me?
Jackie. I called you. Thank you for being here, Jackie. Scott Lipinski. Gabby Leon.
Here.
Rebecca Moreno Adorno.
Here.
Sal Ramirez. Erica Ramos.
Here.
Tanya Richardson Dean. Here. Lisa Schoenbrunn. Heavy Sides.
Here.
Beth Toland. Here. Amy Wilson. Gilbert Zavala.
Here.
Rachel Joseph. Here. Didi Gonzalez. And me. Rachel, did I miss you? I'm so sorry. And the person sitting next to me, you're here. Oh, you. Deshay, who are you again? Deshay, sorry about that. I'll get it, I'll get it. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I do want to give our new members, this is their first meeting with us, and I want to give them a little opportunity to introduce themselves. As I call your name, just briefly tell us who you are, where you're working, and maybe how long you've been in financial aid. Mary Escobar. Mary, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Escobar. I'm with Angelo State University, and I've been in financial aid for 16 years.
Thank you. Heather Fountain.
My name is Heather Fountain. I work at Texas A&M University and I have been in financial aid for 22 years.
All right, thanks, Heather. Michelle Hill. Jackie.
My name is Jackie Kelly. I have worked at Kilgore College and I've been in financial aid 23 years.
All right. Rebecca.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Adorno. I'm with Texas Christian University, and I've been working with different financial aid initiatives here at the university now for 7 years.
Thanks, Rebecca. Erica Ramos.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Erica Dene Ramos from South Texas, PHA ISD, and I've been in financial aid counselor for, I stopped counting at 10 years.
That's fair.
Mental health.
All right. Tanya.
Hi, my name is Tanya Richardson Dean. I'm with Trinity Valley Community College and I'm in my 20th year of financial aid.
Beth.
Hi, my name is Beth Toland. I'm here from University of North Texas. See, I've been in higher ed 27 years, 16 years.
And Amy Wilson.
Hi, Amy Wilson from San Houston State University, and I have been in financial aid for about 11 and a half years.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Welcome. We're really excited for you to be here. Our first order of business is consideration of the approval of minutes from our June meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review those. Are there any corrections, additions, any input that we need to consider before we approve those? Hearing none, we will consider the minutes approved. Next on our agenda, we will get an update on our prior business from Deshay. Anything this morning?
Good morning. No, when we left off in June, and did you all recall, we had a emergency bell that went off, but we did not leave with any prior business, luckily. So I don't have update for that agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, next is an update from John Wyatt, Senior Director of External Relations at the Coordinating Board.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
There he is. Hi, John.
Hi. Well, good morning. Thank you all for having me. I will be pretty brief because there's not a lot to talk about in terms of a legislative update. As I'm sure you're aware, currently the Senate is sitting as a court of impeachment for Attorney General Paxton. It's likely that that will probably wrap up either later this week or early next week. And then after that, it's probable that the governor will be calling the legislature into a special session this fall, potentially in October, to deal with some issues that the governor believes weren't adequately addressed during the regular session, primarily education vouchers. So, very likely that we're going to see that issue come up in a special session. You may be aware that during the regular session, the Senate passed a bill. The House did not. The House did appoint a committee after the regular session to look at the issue. And they put out some recommendations for what they would support in a vouchers bill. So that's kind of the their opening position for the session that's going to come up. So again, we can expect that probably in an October timeframe. The other thing that will occur in the interim leading up to the next session is interim committee charges and hearings. So for those of y'all not familiar, and the interim is the period between the regular sessions. So we are currently in the 88th interim of the legislature. But during that period, the lieutenant governor in the Senate and the speaker in the House charge committees with looking into specific items. So for each committee, including the higher education committees, the appropriations committees, there will be a list of specific items that they will be asked to look into and potentially make recommendations for going into the next session of the legislature. As I said, the lieutenant governor and the speaker are the ones who actually issue those charges to committees. Usually those charges come out probably end of year. And what the committees will then do over the course of next year is hold interim hearings. So committees will meet to take testimony, to receive information, and to consider and debate whether they should make recommendations on these issues, if there are specific policy remedies they want to consider on these issues, and that will go into their interim committee report, which will be going to the legislature for their next session. So at the coordinating board, we are usually pretty heavily involved in providing data to the committees, having our commissioner and our staff testify before those committees. So as that process gets rolling next year, we'll make sure that you're aware of any charges, particularly relevant to financial aid. So that will take up kind of our next year and a half as we're getting closer to the next session. And the final thing I wanted to make y'all aware of, after each session, we put out a summary of higher education legislation. That document is up on our website. I'm happy to maybe share the link with Deshay, who can pass that on to y'all. But it provides some background information on all the bills that were passed in the regular session relevant to higher education, as well as information on the higher education budget and what was actually funded, kind of both at the coordinating board and in higher education more generally. So I think a lot of people have found that to be a handy resource, and we're happy to make sure that that's shared with y'all. So that's what I've got, but I am happy to answer any questions or if there's anything I can assist with.
Thank you, John. Anyone have comments, questions for John at this time? All right. Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Have a great day.
Next item on our agenda is financial aid strategic priority update from Charles Quintero-Poles. He is not going to join us this morning. He will be with us this afternoon for some other updates, but he does not have a strategic priority update at this time. Next on our agenda is the Taspa subcommittee. I think Leah Smalley has an update for us.
I'm here. Let me see if I can get my camera to work. Am I on?
You are. We can see you and hear you.
I had to log in from home and it's kind of weird to do Zoom.
Never know.
Okay. So I believe we are going to be looking for volunteers for a chair for this Taspa committee, but since we don't have a chair today, I am providing this update if I can get my computer to work. Okay, so I drafted up a couple things I wanted to run through with y'all on Taspa. You may have seen since the last meeting, we've officially launched the online Taspa. So I expect a lot of cheering and clapping. And I know Dee Dee's not on, but she was the first person to email me and she said, congratulations. So it's very exciting that we finally, after many, 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 many months, 2 years to be exact, we got it launched. So since that time, we've been running daily reports to kind of see the activity. And so I thought it'd be nice for y'all to kind of hear, how is that going? So I ran the numbers this morning, and as of right now, we've had about 576 people create an account. Those could be anybody, because I know I went and created one because I wanted to check it out. I did not submit a Taspa, but we know we have a lot of people logging in to look at it, to kind of play around. But out of those 500, we've had 200 students submit. So this is a friendly reminder that everyone should be going in to Move It to download or retrieve those files to make sure that if you have funding for 23-24, that you're evaluating those students to see if they qualify for any state aid. And then another thing that we're working on now that we've launched is a survey that we're going to be posting onto our webpage. And the purpose of that survey is we've actually not heard a lot. So I'm like, fingers crossed, that's a good thing. But in the event there are issues or feedback or requests for enhancements or anything like that, we wanted to find a way to collect that information. And so we're working to finalize that, but the intent is that it will always be up on our webpage and people can go to that and provide feedback. So more to come on that. Let's see, the last thing that we are working on for kind of the 23 and now going into 24-25 is that we're building an admin portal, and that is intended for our internal staff. But the reason that that's significant for schools and the community is because it's going to allow us to help and support this project. So anytime somebody has they run into a question or they have technical problems, it'll allow us to kind of log in and look to see where it's at. And our developers have just been so great. They've really put a lot of hard work into the whole project in general. But I was excited about the admin portal because, whenever you launch a new product, you're like, how do I look stuff up? How do I, assist people? So this is a really great tool that we have launched part of it. And next week, I think we're launching the final piece of it. In the future, just so y'all know, our hope is to build an external admin portal. So at some point, can't guarantee when, schools would be able to log into the Taspa portal, and you would be able to look up any students that you have their information. Again, it's really hard with this population of students that doesn't have a lot of identifiers, but eventually you'd be able to look at that. So what do y'all actually want to hear about? Probably 24-25, but I wanted to at least celebrate a little bit to say that 23-24 is out there. But now 24-25 is what everyone wants to know. What is going on with that? We have been actively working to identify the changes. I'm happy to report that We have finalized our kind of list of what we think is necessary from the FAFSA simplification and how that will impact Tasfa. So next steps are we're going to be contacting our Tasfa subcommittee because we want to get that general input and find out, did we miss something, or, are we going to eliminate something that is still necessary? So all of that is happening within the next week. And then once those are done, we're sending it to y'all. So the Financial Aid Advisory Committee, we usually at this point in the year have already told y'all what the changes are, but because of the delays everywhere with FAFSA simplification, we're just a little bit behind. So we do intend to share that information with this committee so that you can provide anything that we missed, or if you need something urgently on the TASPA, we can consider that. Now, that being said, our goal this year is really to change as little as possible. And the reason is because we want to be able to get the development finished and get online tests for 24-25 out there. But because we're waiting on FAFSA to kind of see what their final product is going to look like, we know that our development will then get pushed out a little bit. So as far as expectations go, we will have the paper form done. Our plan is to release the paper when the FAFSA opens theirs, both online and I'm sure they'll post their paper. So that is our plan, is to at least, like last year, we'll get the paper in Spanish and English out for 24-25, and then shortly thereafter we'll wrap up development, testing, get it all out there. The good news is we already have the foundation for the online form. It's really just making those tweaks to it to make those alignments, because at the end of the day, our one goal is make sure that the school gets what they need for the SAI. Hopefully you're working with your vendors on whatever tool you use for TASFA. Most schools in their FAM system, they have an ability to do the calculation. That's the same concept here, is that we're going to do every effort to align with FAFSA so that you can still have the data you need to then do that SAI calculation. The only things that I can probably share at this point, just because I don't want to get too into the weeds on my update, but we have identified roughly 20 questions on the TASPA that we plan to eliminate. That being said, we also found some questions that we're going to add. So I don't know that it's truly, we're getting rid of 20 and it's going to be shorter. It's just kind of like we're swapping out questions, because FAFSA did eliminate a lot of their tax questions, untaxed information, some of their asset stuff changed. And so we're doing those alignments, but they also changed other things that will require that we add things in. A couple things. One, we do not plan to remove the housing status. So I know that that's kind of been a sore spot with the FAFSA, like, how are we going to get that information? So on TASFA, we plan to leave that on there so that way you can know what their selection is. And then also the selective service, unfortunately, has not gone away for state aid. So we'll be leaving selective service on there so you can still collect that within the form. And we're doing some minimal movements of some of the questions within there to kind of align with FAFSA. But as you could see, if you look at the paper form, they did a significant overhaul on the aesthetics of it. At the end of the day, I don't know that they said that they scrapped it down to 30 questions. They did not. I mean, all they did was remove the individual questions and merge them into new categories. And so when we did like a comparison line to line, we weren't finding that many significant changes. So we don't intend to change the task that much. Again, we're just trying to make those minimal alignments, reduce the questions that the student does not need to answer, and then make any enhancements that we can for this year. Let me check my notes here. I think that's it. So I'll stop and I'm ready for questions if you have any.
Thanks, Leah. Questions about TASFA?
I did have a question. So paper application you said will be ready. Do you know the launch date? Are you going to coincide that with the Department of Ed's launch date?
Yes, we will be, our plan is to release the TASFA to schools in advance like we have in the past. We always do that as a draft so you can look at it and we can make sure, again, we didn't make any mistakes or if there's anything that we need to consider. Now, 99% of the time when we've done that, we don't end up making any significant changes. They're just like little one-offs while we make it fillable. But that at least gives you an opportunity to see it before we publish it to the public. But, you know, we're planning to do that roughly a month before we anticipate Department of Ed releasing theirs, so in November. And then we're trying to be ready on like December 1st so that we can, like, if Department of Ed comes out with theirs, because we just can't really anticipate what their date is going to be. We're just trying to be armed and ready, you know, so that's the goal. But we do hope to get out a draft, even if it's not a full month before December at some point, so you can at least see and click around in the draft copy.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other Taspa questions for Leah? All right, thank you, Leah, for that update. We do have a standing item, the data collection subcommittee update. I don't know if Dee Dee was able to join. Dee Dee Gonzalez? All right, doesn't look like Dee Dee's with us today, that's fine. All right, moving along to our next standing item is legislative subcommittee update. I do not have an update on that subcommittee today. Let's see. Taspa updates. Also PDD. Yeah. All right. So all right, so next normally would be our update from the Texas Association of State Financial Aid Administrators. I do not believe we have an update on that particular item today. And next we would like to hear from our high school district updates. Shauna and or Erica.
Hello, good morning. I'm not entirely sure what update other than introducing myself. You let me know what information you guys are interested in and I'm glad to share.
Generally, I would like to
Hello,
know,
can
at
you
least
hear me?
from my perspective, it would be nice to know how your students are
Hello?
informed of the changes for the upcoming year. Thoughts on that? What your plan may be?
Can you hear us,
Can
Erica?
you hear us?
Oh, I'm just barely getting you. Apologies, some technical difficulties. Can you repeat that?
No problem. I think we just were wanting to get an overall update from your perspective, how your students are thinking about the changes for 24-25, FAFSA changes to Taspa, the e-Taspa, anything that you're hearing from students about those changes?
There is a lot of trepidation about the changes, and it's coming from both sides, both FAFSA students and Taspa students. Everyone is just not sure how they're going to tackle it, and they really want assurances from our end that we know what we're doing, that we're going to guide them properly and correctly. And so what I'm actively telling our students, and especially our parents, is don't worry, we will all get there together. There's just a lot of fear, and social media is not helping. There's a lot of accounts and videos about that. Quite frankly, it's scaring the kids and scaring the families about how they think they're going to do it one way, but it's not going to work, and they're not going to get anything. So our district is ready and anxious to be able to look at that application, and we're telling the kids we're going to figure it out together. Just have some patience. Does that help?
Yes, I think it gives us a good idea at an institution level what we may can work on. But being in the same boat, it's hard times. We don't have a really hard deadline or timeline, it's hard for us to gauge what needs to happen when. We're developing a marketing plan now, and so, which kind of encompasses all areas. So hearing from the student perspective is always a good idea, so I like to have that feedback.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Erica.
I lost you a little bit.
Sorry. That's okay. We appreciate your updates. She might be frozen.
Write it into the chat.
I think the other thing we're seeing in the high schools is the kids were set on that accidentally fill out the application. They're already planning on doing in October. So we've really put out a lot of social media, a lot of postage, postcards and things like that at the high school levels, telling the kids not to fill it out until they hear from us in December, because, parents of older children are like, well, we have to do it October 1st. And it's like, no, not this year. It's changed. And since we don't have a set launch date, I think that's really created a lot of hiccups with things for the high school students, because it's affecting scholarships. We have a lot of schools asking for the CSS profile, which the kids have to pay for, versus the FAFSA, the Tasfa. And I think that's really upsetting for even our Texas schools. Rice has asked for CSS profiles, where the children are having a little bit of difficulty coming up with that $16 to pay for that.
Thank you, Lisa. That's very helpful. And I think what Rachel was saying is, we don't know either. And as financial aid administrators, we're figuring it out as we go as well. But if there's anything we can do to support the high school arena, or just make sure that information is getting to the right people.
We understand that the CSS profile is going to open October 1. So it's going to open on the traditional date. So kids that are doing QuestBridge or kids that are doing scholarships, they're asking for that CSS profile, which is going to be interesting to see how that affects and impacts what goes on.
Yeah, whether that will impact FAFSA filing numbers. All right, anyone else, committee members or anyone want to give any feedback on the things you're doing to support high schools or anything like that?
We said like our top 9 changes are coming for next year for 24, 25 to all of our
high school. Okay, great.
This is Erica Ramos. I just wanted to say our local institutions have been really, really good about communication, about showing support for, because we're all in the same boat together, and saying, as soon as FAFSA's out, let us know, we'll book us, we can go in and start doing drives together, and we're all learning together. So I do have to say, at least in South Texas, the institutions, South Texas College, UT or GV, have been immensely supportive and understanding in knowing that their students, as well as ours, the families, where it's going to be a bit of a guinea pig year, but resources, information, we're all trying to keep on the same boat so that no one is giving misinformation, which thankfully isn't really an issue yet so far. But very pleasantly surprised about the level of communication support from the higher ed in our area.
Great, thank you, Erica. That's really good to know. All right, we will move on to our next item, which is the update from the Office of Student Financial Aid Programs. Deshae Reed will give us an update about what's going on there.
All right, good morning, everyone. Wanted to give just a quick update. If you've joined some of our webcasts that we've provided throughout the month of August, as well as one that we just recently gave yesterday regarding a new platform that we are using for our programs, which is called Grant and Aid Processing Platform. So in case you haven't had an opportunity, it's an acronym because we're in financial aid and we love acronyms, right? GAP is what it stands for, Grant and Aid Processing Portal. So it is a modernized, centralized platform that we are going to host our 3 grant programs, our work study programs, and that also includes college work study and mentorship if you're participating in them, educational aid, bilingual education. So all of those programs in which you've probably been going to different areas to request funding, whether that's been fillable forms or through the recently CB Pass and the grant application. All of those programs are going to be housed in this more centralized platform. And so we're planning to integrate all those programs and have it available very soon, because I've gotten a lot of questions on, well, how soon will it be ready so you can start submitting your payment request for this fall. It will be up and running within hopefully in the next week or so. We'll make some announcements to the schools, but in the meantime, we want to make sure that you are familiar with what that platform will provide to you. It will allow you to make your payment requests for all of those programs in one centralized location. It will also allow the ability for you to make changes with any student counts with ease. When it's time to do any authority to transfer, if you remember that process, for those of you who ever participated in it and had to do forms, you actually will do that form in that platform. You'll also have the ability to send communication to the coordinating board staff related to any of those programs. So a lot of the things that you would do outside of a platform individually will now be hosted within that one central location. Like I said, we will be sending out communication regarding when it will be ready for you to start requesting payments. But before you can request payments, you will have to create an account. And so we recently did 3 webcasts. The first webcast was on August 24th, and that was giving you a high-level overview of what that platform looked like. The second webcast was really trying to get the directors or someone who's going to be considered a point of contact, the primary point of contact, to understand the roles. And that was hosted on August 31st. And then yesterday, we just did a webcast that talked about specifically our request tile that hosts the payments, the transfer and return of funds form, all in that one request tile. So if you haven't had an opportunity to look at any of those webcasts, I highly recommend that you go back and take an opportunity to look at the webcast that we've already posted. The 2 that we've already posted was the August 24th and the August 31st. We will have the one that we just did yesterday, hopefully posted within the next week. But like I said, we will put out an announcement once we're ready for you to start requesting payments. But like I said, you have to set up an account first. And a primary point of contact has to be set up at each institution, and that would be a director of financial aid. And from there, the director of financial aid will have to determine who will be in certain user roles. And so we have certain user roles like a reporting official, business office official, and then just anyone at your campus who would be just considered an institutional administrative role. And again, August 31st was the webcast and where we talk in more detail about those user roles. One of the great things about GAP is that you won't have to ask for access through the coordinating board for your staff. That's actually going to be handled at the institution. So that's why it's very important to go back and look at that August 31st webcast so you have a better understanding of exactly what those user roles look like and the setup for that. The coordinating board is only going to approve access for the primary point of contact, and that is it. Everything else will be handled at the institutional level. So hopefully that will at least ease that access. We will still do a user review for all the other portals that you use that are related to the loan programs. Our loan programs are not in this gap. It's only the programs that I've listed, which are the grant programs, TEOG, Texas Grant, and TEG, Work Study. And let me preface, Work Study is not a lump sum of money that goes to the institutions like it's been doing before. You actually have to request the money through this GAP portal. So if you've been familiar with receiving a lump sum of your allocation, that goes away starting this fiscal year. Work Study had a number of changes that occurred, And I highly recommend reading the program guidelines. It is now one program guideline for both college work study and mentorship. And we do detail all of the changes that happened during the negotiated rulemaking and the updated rules to that program. So you actually have to request your money. So you're not going to be sent your work study money. So in case you are wondering if the coordinating board is going to send you money, we are not. You have to request the money once that portal goes live. So that's one of the key things about work study. And then, like I mentioned, bilingual education and educational aid are also within that portal. So be on the lookout. We will send that out to everybody, letting you know when that's available. And then just to kind of go over just maybe some recent announcements and let you know, in case you haven't had an opportunity to look at all the number of memos we love to send out to you all. We did send out on August 31st regarding the financial aid for SWIFT transfer program, which Charles will talk about a little bit later in depth about the program participation agreement. That participation agreement went to the directors of financial aid, and we asked the directors of financial aid to work with whoever at their institution to ensure that that PPA can be signed off if they chose to participate in the program. August 29th, we did send out an update to the state financial aid priority deadline that has moved from January 15th to March 15th. So if you hadn't had a chance to read that memo, definitely go back and look at that. And then we sent out 2 memos on August 24th related to college access loan interest rate change, as well as the forward interest rate change. So if you hadn't had an opportunity, go back and look at that as well. And then August 21st, we did give up some additional announcements to some changes to our updates to our processes, specifically for our loans, and just reminders and some recent changes to some program guidelines. All of these announcements can be found on our student financial aid programs webpage under Stay Connected. For upcoming deadlines, just to keep on your radar, we also have these, not all of these deadlines are listed on our fall 23 institutional calendar. So I did want to just make some of these aware to you. I just recently talked about that PPA for FAAC. That deadline date to turn in your intent to participate or not to participate is September 29th. I'll just do a quick shout out. That's an awesome date because that's my birthday. So I just want to put that on the records. And then we also have financial aid database cycle 3. What can I get some oops? Okay. Opens on September 20th. And then your initial file submission date to and let me explain. An initial file submission just means you need to submit a file. It doesn't mean you have to be certified by this date. It means you need to start that process and submit a file. We did find that when we started that in the cycle 2, it actually worked. We did have a lot of schools who were able to validate a lot sooner than they were in the past. So it does help. And so the initial file submission date deadline is October 6th. I do know a lot of us will be at Taspa, the conference, not the application, during that week. So I highly recommend that when that opens on September 20th, submit a file, because what's going to take you a long time is reconciling these state financial aid programs. And that's what cycle 3 is about. You do have to reconcile your state financial aid programs during cycle 3. Again, it opens up September 20th and the initial file submission date is October 6th. And then lastly, there's a deadline date for the FAAC educationally disadvantaged confirmation roster, which is due October 15th. We have other dates that are happening throughout this fall term. So if you haven't had an opportunity, I highly recommend that you print up the fall 23 calendar, institutional calendar that has all the dates that go all the way to December. You'll also know when we are doing any kind of webcast or our agency is closed. We will be sending out some upcoming memos, like I mentioned before, the launch of GAP, the 2002-2003 state campus-based reports, because that is coming up, along with our annual review for our user access. And that's going to be related to all the other user accounts that we have in the system for the institutions, as well as we'll announce when we are accepting files for that. So that's what's happening in student financial aid programs. I think Charles is on here, so he's going to give some additional updates on what's going on as well. If you weren't here or did not know, and I'll just kind of set the conversation and then hand it over to Charles. We did have some changes happen over the last few months in June. Student financial aid programs as a division, we had some structural changes. And so Leah Smalley had been promoted to Director of Policy. And now I'm happy to say she's Senior Director of Policy. So definitely congratulations to her. And also I was promoted to Director 3 over our student financial aid operations. So I handle the entire portfolio of the operations for the division. And we had some additional structural changes. So we're very excited for all of our opportunities and our newer roles. And Charles is going to speak a little bit more about what those changes mean for everyone.
Hi, folks. Deshay, I'll admit I was trying to follow. Are you just looking for me to talk about the FAAC?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. I wasn't sure what you were passing over to me. So I think what Deshay was asking me to mention to you all is just with Leah Smalley's promotion to Senior Director for Policy, we're assessing different aspects of student financial aid programs to align with our structure. We have 3 main areas within student financial aid programs. We have our innovation and quality area, our operations area, and our policy area. And we've determined that from a structural standpoint, we really want to do our best to make sure that the Financial Aid Advisory Committee has as much input as possible into the policy arena when it comes to financial aid. And so Leah Smalley is going to take over the Financial Aid Advisory Committee so that she can really drive that agenda and work to make sure that we are able to hear your thoughts and input and bring that to the forefront and really utilize Financial Aid Advisory Committee as an opportunity for us to continue to grow in the policy area. And so starting with the December Financial Aid Advisory Committee, Leah Smalley will be stepping in as the agency representative. And so wanted to let you all know that, and also to thank Deshay for the work that she's done over the past several years to continue moving the Financial Aid Advisory Committee forward. And I really appreciate the work that she's done.
Thank you, Charles. I would like to add my congratulations to both Deshay and Leah, who I would imagine most of us have worked extensively with these 2 individuals and have seen how much they have contributed to the coordinating board's ability to be successful and help us be successful. And just really want to thank Deshay for her leadership. It's really made a huge difference on this committee and to schools in the last several years. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've definitely enjoyed my time being the coordinating board's representative. I will continue to sit on the data collection subcommittee, so I will still be working with many of y'all. And of course, there's always operational things that I'm sure will come up along the way for all of these programs. So I know that we will continue our partnership. So I'm very excited about the opportunity in my new role. And I'm also excited for Leah and her new role that she is actually in as Senior Policy Director and also leading FAAC. This has been a wonderful opportunity to get to know you all a lot better, a lot more in what we've been doing. And I think this is just amazing. This is an amazing committee, and I work with an amazing group of people, and I'm really excited for what you all will continue to do and continue to grow the state of Texas. So thank you all as well for welcoming me in and allowing me to lead you all. But I'm going to pass that lovely baton over to Leah, and she will continue to do wonderful work with you guys as well. So thank you.
Yes, we're in excellent hands.
Yes.
Looking forward to working with Leah. We are going to shift a couple of things around on the agenda, if that's all right. But first, we would like to take a break. 10 minutes, 15? Let's do 15 minutes. We'll be back at 10:30. Okay, that's 12 minutes. So 10:30 just for a round number. Thanks.
We are unmuted and our camera's back on.
All right. Give everybody another minute or so to get back from break. And then we'll get started. I do want to mention, maybe roll call again. I forgot to ask you. Sorry. Let's run through roll call again, everybody. Rochelle. Here first. Thank you so much. Jackie Adler. Mary Escobar.
Here.
Oh, there's Jackie. Hi, Jackie. All right. Mary's here. Heather. Michelle Hill. Here. Oh, Michelle. Hello. How are you? It's nice to see you. Cecilia Jones. Jackie Kelly. Scott Lipinski. Gabby.
Here.
Hello. Rebecca. I think you're back. Hi,
Yes,
Rebecca.
here.
All right. Sal Ramirez. Erica.
Those students scores,
Here.
maybe you remember when you applied.
All right. Tanya's here. Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Tevian. Oh, yeah. Here. Beth is here. Amy. We'll be back in a sec. Gilbert. I think Gilbert's back with us on the phone, or on Zoom. Rachel. Dee Dee. And Shay. Here. All right. Thanks, guys. So before we go into the next agenda item we're gonna tackle is we're gonna let Charles do the overview of the FAAC program, give us some updates there. But before we do that, I just want to mention after Charles does his update, and we get a couple of other updates, we are going to be taking on the business of electing a vice chair for this committee. So this person would work with me this year and sort of learn the ropes as I did with my friend Michelle last year. And then would be the chair of the FAAC starting next September. And so I want you to start thinking about, you may nominate yourself or you may nominate any committee member. And so just start thinking about who you might want to throw under the bus. No, I'm just kidding. Who you might want to honor with that nomination. And I can tell you it is fun. It is very rewarding. I'm learning a lot about the coordinating board, about the way this committee functions and what its goals and really the sort of influence that it can have. And so it's been, it's already been really interesting. So I would encourage you, if you have any wish to do that, please nominate yourself. We will also be electing 2 subcommittee chairs. The Taspa subcommittee, Tasfa is in the application, and the legislative subcommittee. Tasfa subcommittee job, Bridget Ingram has been that chair for the last year. And that really, and Leah, I don't know if Leah's still on the phone, she could, give us some insight into how that works. I think Heather served, have you served on that subcommittee before? No, I made that up. Oh, okay. Anyway, so the Tasfa subcommittee does, interact a lot with Leah and her team about the makeup of the Tasfa. As you heard Leah mention in her update, the 24-25 Tasfa will have changes, just like everything else in 2025. So it will be a really good opportunity for this subcommittee to be a part of that production and development of that sort of updated Tasfa. So if you have an interest in that, if you have a lot of students that use Tasfa and you're invested in that form and that process being really, really excellent, then I would encourage you to think about whether you can chair that subcommittee. The legislative subcommittee really is just to bring us updates on legislative issues that impact the financial aid community. We had decided as a committee last year that the legislative subcommittee chair for the FAAC and the legislative committee chair from the Tasfa organization, the association, would sort of partner to just make that easier to, everybody, and there's so much sometimes, some years, to sort of keep up with. And so that person for the new year, starting October 1st, is Delisa Falks from Texas A&M. And so the new legislative subcommittee chair would be sort of partnering with Delisa to keep us up to date on some of the legislative things. So just be tossing that around in your head while you are absolutely riveted listening to Charles talk to us about the FAST program. So Charles, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. So my apologies to everyone that I am not quite up to my usual level, but I will push through because I did want to make sure that there was the opportunity to discuss these two new programs that are being created. First, we'll be talking about FAST, financial aid for swift transfer, and then we'll be talking about the transfer grant program. So the FAST program is a new program that was created by the legislature during this past legislative session as part of the overall effort by the legislature to really transform the way that community colleges are funded within the state. And so the FAST program is one piece of a much larger puzzle of activities that are going on that help drive funding towards community colleges based on various performance measures and indicators of success. For the FAST program specifically, it's focused on dual credit. So it's focused on providing a funding resource that institutions can use in combination with other funding resources that they have, so that the students who are educationally disadvantaged can receive or participate in dual credit at no cost. And there's a couple pieces in there to kind of break down as to what do these different items mean. One piece that we've been talking with everyone about is the concept of no cost. And no cost truly means that the student incurs no cost related to the program. So it's not just that they don't incur tuition and fees, but they truly don't incur any costs. Their books, their supplies, whatever costs might be associated. Students that are eligible for FAST and are participating via an institution that has chosen to be part of the FAST program, those students would incur no cost. Another piece is educationally disadvantaged. And I know we've got a lot of different disadvantaged terms. We have economically disadvantaged, we have academically disadvantaged. This one is educationally disadvantaged. And that's actually a term that is defined in statute in relation to the Texas Education Agency. And what it means is that a student is eligible to participate in the free or reduced price national lunch program. And so with the FAST program, students that were eligible to participate in the national free or reduced price lunch program in any of the 4 school years prior to the academic year in which they're taking the dual credit course, those students are considered to meet the educationally disadvantaged indicator. Another piece is to break down is the definition of dual credit. And dual credit has a very legislation regarding FAST gives a very specific definition for dual credit. And it actually encompasses concepts that we have often referred to as dual credit and dual enrollment. And it brings it together into one concept. And so, a dual credit course for the purposes of the FAST program is either a course that a student is taking for joint high school and junior college credit, or it's another course offered by an institution for which a high school student can earn semester credit hours or continuing education contact hours. And in both of those cases, whether it's the dual credit or the kind of dual enrollment concept, if a student is earning those credits, the credits must be available towards the or can be used towards the satisfaction of several items. Either they can be used towards the satisfaction of a requirement necessary to obtain an industry recognized credential, certificate, or associate degree, a foreign language requirement at an institution of higher education, a requirement in a field of study curriculum that's been developed by the coordinating board, or a requirement in the core curriculum. And so these courses that individuals take, if they fulfill one of those four concepts, then they can be considered dual credit under the FAST program. And so again, the idea is to help provide funding to institutions that would allow them to use that funding and other funding to create the environment where educationally disadvantaged students can take these dual credit courses at no cost. The program is definitely different than other financial aid programs in that it's not a grant to the student. So it's not like Texas Grant or TEOG or TEG, where the student receives a specific grant towards their costs. Instead, the funding goes to the institution, and the institution is using that funding along with other funding sources to create that no-cost environment. And institutions, the funding that they receive is equal to the number of dual credit, excuse me, semester credit hours or their equivalent that educationally disadvantaged students enroll in. And we multiply that number by the FAST tuition rate. And so there is a very unique concept in the FAST program, which is this FAST tuition rate. And the FAST tuition rate really serves two purposes. First, it is the value that we use to determine how much funding each institution is going to receive. And so we take the FAST tuition rate that's in statute. So for not statute, it's in rule. And so for 23-24, the maximum tuition rate is $55 per semester credit hour equivalent. So we take that $55, we multiply it by the semester credit hours or equivalent that educationally disadvantaged students enrolled in. And that is the funding that will be dispersed to the institutions to help support them with this program. The other piece that the FAST tuition rate does is that for institutions that choose to participate in the FAST program, any students that enroll in dual credit courses, regardless of whether or not they're educationally disadvantaged, cannot be charged a tuition rate higher than the FAAC tuition rate. So it effectively puts a cap onto the tuition rates for students that are enrolling in these dual credit courses, regardless of whether or not they are educationally disadvantaged. So an important piece to keep in mind is that the program has these requirements for the institutions. They have to apply this FAAC tuition rates maximum to their dual credit students. They have to ensure that they are allowing these dual credit students who are educationally disadvantaged to enroll at no cost. So there's definitely financial requirements that an institution has to meet by participating in the program, and thus the program is optional. Institutions, public institutions decide whether or not they are going to participate in the program. And if they decide that they're going to participate, then they are agreeing to fulfill these expectations that educationally disadvantaged students will incur no cost, and that they won't charge more than the FAAC tuition rate for the students. This is a very different program than we've run through THCB in the past. And it's also being implemented at a highly accelerated rate based on the request of the legislature. In the statute, the legislature specifically guided us to be able to pursue emergency rulemaking to get this program in place as quickly as possible. So we wanted to make sure that we had it up and running for the fall, but also acknowledge that institutions may need time to figure out whether they can meet the requirements of the program. And so institutions are being, as Deshay mentioned earlier, program participation agreements were sent out to all institutions to find out whether or not they were going to participate. But it is absolutely not a requirement that every public institution participate in the program, or that they all start participating this fall. It might be that institutions need this fall to run numbers and figure out costs and make sure that they can have the agreements in place. And so they might choose to participate starting in the spring. They might choose and wait to start participating next fall in the program. We hope that institutions will take advantage of this opportunity. We already have over 24 institutions that have said they are going to participate. And we expect that that number will grow over the coming semesters while institutions have the chance to really think through the details and figure things out. So it is an unusual pace, and we are definitely working through the challenges of implementing a program that's so different than what we've done in the past, and requires a lot of different types of reporting. With the say with one of our standard state grant programs, TEG, TEOG, Texas Grant, basically institutions have all the information that they need at the institution to figure out whether or not someone can participate, or someone's eligible for the program. But for this program, institutions need to know whether or not the student meets the educationally disadvantaged criteria. And so institutions will need to send us a roster of all of their students enrolled in dual credit courses. And then we use that roster to compare against the TEA data and provide institutions with an indicator of either a yes or no on whether the student was educationally disadvantaged in one of the 4 years prior to this academic year. There'll also need to be reporting that takes place after or at the census time so that we can figure out what all eligible students were enrolled in these dual credit courses. We are working towards the future where we will be able to integrate as much as possible those reporting requirements into the standard CBM reports that are submitted at census each year, so that it can just be part of the standard reporting process, which we then use that information to figure out how many semester credit hours are equivalent, had educationally disadvantaged students enrolled, and provide the funding accordingly. During this first fall period, we're likely going to have to do some ad hoc reporting to get the information in time. But we are kind of working through the pieces of the puzzle. Again, why we're acknowledging that institutions might choose, whether or not they're going to participate this fall. They might feel that the reporting burden for this fall is too great, and they need to wait until we've been able to implement some more streamlined reporting. But we are going to have to do ad hoc reporting this fall in order to pull everything together. In terms of the funding stream, as opposed to standard grant programs where as you're ready to disperse money, you let us know how many people and how much money you need, and we kind of do that throughout the year. The FAST program will have 3 disbursements, after each semester's, after fall, after spring, and after summer's census reporting has been submitted. And we'll use that census reporting to determine how much funding is available, after which we'll disperse those funds. So ideally by the end of each semester, institutions will have received their funding for the program. One key thing that we clarified recently is that the program only applies to high school students who are enrolled in dual credit courses where the institution has an agreement with the school district or charter school under rule, I believe it's 4.84, regarding these agreements to offer dual credit. So it doesn't apply to just kind of any high school student who might go and enroll in a course on their own. Maybe they decide to take a summer course or something like that. It only applies to the dual credit being offered via an agreement that the institution and the school district and charter school have entered into. And so, with those agreements, institutions and school districts and charter schools have the ability to determine responsibilities, who's covering what costs, things like that. If an institution does choose to participate in the FAST program, then it is choosing to participate for all of its agreements. So an institution can't choose to participate, but then have some agreements with some school districts that are FAST agreements and some agreements that aren't FAST agreements. If an institution chooses to participate, all of its agreements are covered by that. And similarly, from a school district standpoint, a school district can choose whether or not to enter into an agreement with an institution. But if that institution has chosen to participate in the FAST program, then if the school district is entering into an agreement, then it is covered by the FAST statute and rules. And so we have a website out on the agency's main website. When you go under institutional resources, that's dedicated specifically to the FAST program. We continue to add frequently asked questions to that to try to help people understand the process. Back at the end of August, we started sending out both the program participation agreements, and we also sent out the information as to how institutions can request their lists of educationally disadvantaged indicators, the yes/no indicator. And then soon we'll get more information out about census reporting. So we're definitely building this as we run along, but we are working to try to make sure that we get all the pieces in place so that institutions who want to participate this fall can, but also acknowledging that some institutions might not have everything in place to participate this fall. For example, an institution does need to be able to provide the indicator, the Texas Student Data System, TEA, has a unique ID that's required for this program so that we can make sure that we are matching up individuals correctly. For this first year of the program, if an institution doesn't have that unique ID, then we will accept the Social Security number or the state alternative ID that TEA has in place, and we'll do a secondary check on those. But we do need one of those indicators so that we can make sure that we are matching up the right people, because there might be two Jim Jones who were born on May 5th, and we can't do it just based on kind of demographic information. We need one of these indicators, and so we are in the first year allowing these other alternatives like the Social Security number or the state alternative ID, but in future years it will require this TSDS indicator. So that's a lot of information and tries to give you the background on kind of main questions that we've been hearing about the program, but wanted to provide an opportunity to answer any questions that you all have about this unique funding source that was created so that we can help educationally disadvantaged students pursue dual credit at low cost.
Question time, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want some clarification, if possible, on, you stated that schools, the institutions have to be in partnership with schools in order to offer the FAST program, but then you said that even if the schools are not in partnership with you, then if the institution is in the FAST program, we still have to offer the students the same 55 rates. I think I got.
I apologize that I could only hear part of what you said, but I'll do my best to try to answer that. What I was mentioning was that institutions who enter into agreements with the school districts and charter schools, if an institution has opted into the FAST program so that they've let the coordinating board know that we are participating in FAST, then the institution has to treat all of its agreements with school districts and charter schools as being part of the FAST program. So if they enter into an agreement with a school district or charter school, it is covered by the FAST program. So an institution can't choose and say, for these 3 school districts, we're going to do FAST for those school districts, but for these 3 school districts, we're going to enter into agreements and not do FAST. That's not an option. An institution can totally choose not to enter into an agreement with a school district or charter school, in which case, that wouldn't be covered because they haven't entered into an agreement to offer dual credit to those students. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question that I was asked to ask. I didn't think of it. We understand that the school is to cover all associated costs like books.
Can I ask you to speak up? I'm having a lot of trouble.
Sure, I have a soft voice, so somebody needs to repeat for me. The question is, what about parking fees? Because we have some parking charges that sometimes are a deterrent.
Okay. I will admit that we get a lot of questions on a theme here. We've let everyone know that educationally disadvantaged students need to be able to take these dual credit courses at no cost. An educationally disadvantaged student should incur no cost taking these dual credit courses. And we get a lot of questions of, what about this cost? What about this cost? What about this cost? What about this cost? Educationally disadvantaged students in the FAST program can incur no cost for taking their dual credit courses.
Thank you. That answers okay.
Any other questions on the FAFT program? So that was a lot of information. Thank you. Thank you for giving us all that. I think we all had, been anxious to learn. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think our next topic is you as well, the proposed rules for transfer grants.
Cool. And one of the things, Leah, if I can ask you to do is, if you would send out to the Financial Aid Advisory Committee the link to the FAST program website, just so you all have that, because that's a great resource of information.
Okay,
So,
will do.
thanks. The transfer grant program is another new program, and it's also a very unique program in the sense that the program is, the agency was provided authority to create the transfer grant program through a rider in the General Appropriations Act. So there's not a specific statute in the Education Code that outlines the requirements for the program. Instead, in a rider, the legislature guided us that we should use funds available to create a transfer grant program. And so what we are doing is we are using what we've learned from the federally funded transfer grant program. We had this past year, we had used GEAR funding, Governor's Emergency Education Relief Program funding, to run a pilot program for transfer grants, to try to learn some things about structures and impact, and what might be feasible moving forward. And so we're trying to use that to inform how we're moving forward with this program. And soon we will be posting the proposed rules for the transfer grant program. Those are targeted to go into the October 13th issue of the Texas Register. And so that will provide everyone an opportunity to see the specifics of the program and what we're intending on bringing to the board at the January board meeting. Because our goal is to be able to get approval at that board meeting to be able to get these rules into place so that institutions can utilize funding this spring for the program, as well as utilizing funding in the coming year for the program. I fully acknowledge the fact that, yes, it would have been ideal to be able to get these rules out before the start of the semester instead of after the start of the semester. But the challenges of timing when it comes to moving rules through the system. We were not given an emergency rulemaking authority for this particular program. And so that definitely hindered the timing by which we could get this out. But we didn't want to delay the opportunity for you all to be able to use the funding for these students. The program is specifically for use at the four-year public institutions, as well as the HRIs. And it is set up to provide an opportunity to provide transfer grants to students who have completed associate degrees and transferred to a four-year public institution, and to provide funding to assist them in paying for their bachelor degree program. The eligibility requirements will have a lot of the standards. They need to be a Texas resident. They need to show financial need. They need to have applied for financial aid. So kind of those standard pieces. It does require that they're enrolled in a baccalaureate degree program at one of the eligible institutions that I mentioned. It does require that they are making satisfactory academic progress. The way we've written the rule is that satisfactory academic progress is based on the requirements utilized by the financial aid office to determine eligibility for federal financial aid programs, to align that with federal financial aid. The unique requirements about the program are that it does require full-time enrollment unless granted a hardship. It does require that they have, excuse me, completed an associate degree program, and that in that associate degree, that they completed it with at least a 2.5 GPA, and that the associate degree includes the completion of the core curriculum, or potentially an abbreviated core curriculum if a field of study curriculum included an abbreviated core curriculum in it. And so it does have those unique characteristics, that full-time requirement, that earning an associate degree requirement, and that the associate degree be earned with a 2.5 GPA and included the core curriculum. It does have pieces in it in terms of discontinuation of eligibility or non-eligibility. Much like other programs have, the piece where, once you earn a bachelor's degree, you're not eligible for the program any longer. It does have the requirement that a student's eligibility ends once they've attempted 135 semester credit hours. It does have the requirement that their eligibility ends after 2 years from the semester in which they first receive a transfer grant through the program. 3 years if the bachelor's degree program requires more than 4 years to complete. So if a program has been gone through the standard process with the coordinating board to identify it as a program that exceeds 4 years, then they get 3 years for that. And students aren't eligible to receive both the transfer grant and a Texas grant simultaneously. So they're not eligible if they're receiving Texas grants, they can't receive the transfer grant program. It does have the kind of standard hardship provisions in place for you all to be able to review as to whether or not hardship needs to be or is appropriately applied. It does provide some priorities to assist you so that if you have more students that are eligible for the program, then you have funds to provide for the program. Then it does provide for priorities, one that you're familiar with, those providing funds to continuing recipients, giving those individuals priority. It is looking at giving priority to students whose expected family contribution doesn't exceed the priority EFC that's established, which is the 60% of the average statewide tuition and fees. And then also for first-time recipients, if the criteria of limiting down to those who are meeting the priority EFC doesn't bring the institution's pool small enough, then it would also look at individuals who demonstrated the highest levels of academic achievement prior to transferring. So it gives some criteria to help with that process. We will announce the excuse me, the maximum grant amount, and so that you have that figure to be able to utilize. It's likely it's roughly in the transfer grant target award amount general area, but you'll see that in the rules that are posted. And then the allocation structure in terms of allocating funds out to institutions uses an allocation structure that is very much modeled after the prorated structure of the Texas grant program. And so, we're looking to see those individuals who are enrolled and not have yet received a bachelor's degree, that they're residents, that they were enrolled full-time in either the fall or spring, that they have the 9-month EFC below the priority EFC level. So looking at those concepts of really just looking at the, again, those 4 items. Undergraduates had not received a bachelor's degree, you're a resident, you're enrolled full-time in either fall or spring, and you have a 9-month EFC at or below the priority EFC. So we calculate that for each institution, and then each institution gets their prorated share. So kind of added all of those numbers up for all the eligible institutions, and then for each one, figure out what percentage funds each institution will get. And we do plan on doing the process that we use for other programs where when we send out the allocations, we'll notify institutions of their allocation for both years of the biennium at the same time so that you know what your funding is. And you'll also have that ability, let me just read. I believe that we have it in the structure, but I'm trying to see real quick. I don't want to answer that question on the fly, so read the rules when they come out. But we will provide you with both years of the eligibility. And we have the standard process in place where we'll verify the data with you all. We'll say, okay, here's what we're seeing in the system of the people that meet these 4 criteria. So one of the things to keep in mind that the allocation is just based on general criteria. It does not get into the level of figuring out the exact eligibility of, who you have as eligible population. So we're not looking at, are they enrolled or do they have selective service enrollment? And, we're not going into every little detail. We're just looking at a broad concept and allocating funds proportionately accordingly. And then you'll use the new grant and aid processing portal to request your funds through that. And this program will be under Chapter 22. And so the program participation agreement that you have executed for this current biennium will automatically incorporate the transfer grant program, because your program participation agreements apply to all Chapter 21 and 22 programs. And this is a Chapter 22 program, so you won't have to do another program participation agreement. We had to do separate program participation agreements for the FAST program because that's a Chapter 13 program, not a Chapter 22 program. And because that program, institutions are making a financial commitment to the FAST program. And so it's important that institutions are providing that very specific acknowledgement of whether they're participating in FAST. With the transfer grant program, it's a Chapter 22 program. There isn't a match on this program. There isn't that concept that if someone, like with Texas grant or TEOG, if someone receives a Texas grant or TEOG, you have to make sure that their tuition and fees are covered by non-loan resources. The transfer grant program does not have that as a criteria. While we hope that institutions will do everything they can to make sure that we can create situations where these transfer students are able to enroll, it's not a specific criteria of the program that you have to do that match for the program. So that's a general overview. Again, they should be showing up in the October 13th Texas Register so that institutions have a chance to read through and comment on the program. We'll be taking the program to the January board meeting so that the board has an opportunity to review and ideally approve the program to move forward. And once we have approval to move forward, we will very quickly notify everyone or all the eligible institutions of their allocations so that you can begin using that funding. And we'll send those notices through the grant and aid processing platform because the new platform actually has a structure in place that will be able to do all of our allocation notifications right through the platform, so that you'll be able to access at any time what your allocation is, how much you've spent on an allocation, etc. And so we'll just be building the Texas Transfer Grant Program into that overall grant and aid processing platform so that we can get that information out to you quickly. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about the transfer grant program.
Hi, Amy here. I have a question just for clarification. Will the selection process still happen from the coordinating board of the eligible students, like coordinating board will notify the institutions of who their recipients are?
No, we are converting this into a block grant program. And so we will, like the Texas grant, TEG, TEOG, work study, etc. We give you an allocation, you figure out which students are eligible and you select the students. So we are moving away from the centralized selection and just lining this up as a block grant program to provide institutions with greater ability to figure out how best to incorporate this program into the variety of financial aid programs that you have so that you can have the greatest impact on your own student population.
Thank you.
Lots of
You're
cheers
welcome.
and clapping here, Charles. Thank you for that information.
I know it sometimes doesn't seem like we hear you, but we do. We know which pieces are working and which pieces aren't.
Any other questions for Charles on this? Charles, thank you so much. We know you don't feel that great. And so thank you for taking your time and energy to be with us. We really, really appreciate all the info.
Thank you. I wondered if you might allow me to ask an unrelated question that I should have asked during Deshay's update, but I forgot to. Would that be okay?
Always.
Deshay mentioned to you all the grant and aid processing platform that we're working to launch. And we're very excited about it. We think it's going to provide a lot of benefits to institutions. Deshay mentioned the fact that institutions are going to be able to start having control. The primary point of contact at each institution is going to be able to give access to other people at their institution or within their financial aid office so that you can control that rather than having to go through us. It's going to give you an opportunity at any time to go in and see your allocation level on each of your block grant programs. You can see, what was your initial allocation, whether there's been any adjustments, as well as what have you spent, what have you transferred, what's pending. And, we're continuing that the goal is to continue the ease with which you can request that funding. And so it maintains that piece that was built in the product that we're replacing, that all you need to do is go in, indicate number of students, indicate how much money you need, and it'll come through to us so that we can get those disbursements out to you. And you'll be able to see where they are in the process. So we're hoping that it really is going to provide some significant transparency for you all in operating the programs. I know that the current system covers Texas Grant TEG and TEOG, and Deshay mentioned that we're adding bilingual education, educational aid, and the work study program to it. So we'll be able to get all of those in. We also intend on using it to be able to disperse your FAST funding to you. And so we'll be able to use that same system. We're planning on using it to disperse your transfer grant funding to you. We're actually planning on using it to disperse your Texas First funding to you, as well as the Texas Leadership Scholars funding to you. So we're really working to try to bring everything into one place so that you don't have to go through lots of different systems to ask for the money that you need. You'll just be able to go to one place when you need to ask for money for the programs that you participate in. So pretty big effort that we've been going through. I will be completely transparent that there definitely have been some bumps in the road trying to get all of our systems to talk to each other. In the midst of everything that we're doing as an agency, we also moved to a new financial system. We had to move over to the CAPS finance process system that all state agencies are on. And we made that transition on September 1st. And trying to kind of get the systems to talk to each other has been more challenging than I would have liked it to have been. But I'm still very feeling very excited about what we're going to be able to deliver to you. I also want to acknowledge the fact that normally we would have had the system up and running in August for you to be able to start making your requests for your Texas grant, your TEG, your TEOG. And we're a month behind in putting that available. We had hoped to have everything up so that you could start working in the system. Deshay's been doing some great work, making sure that you all are exposed to the system so that you can see what's the process to go in and request your access to the system. What's the process for you to be able to ask for money once the system's up and running. So wanting to do everything that we can to make sure you're familiar with it in preparation for the system coming live. But I'm sure that the question on everyone's mind is, when are you going to go live with this system so that you can request the funding? And the question I have for you all to provide me input on is what is the drop dead date for us that if we can't get the system up, that we need to come up with alternatives for you to be able to request your money. Because I know that you all have specific needs in terms of getting this state funding dispersed to you so that you can do the things that you need to do. Our ideal would be to do all of that through the grant and aid processing platform, and I am doing everything I can to push that forward so that we can launch in the coming weeks. But I also want to respect what you all are having to deal with in the fact that you haven't been able to request your money. And so really needing to know, if we are, not able to bring the system up until October 4th, is that still going to work for you? Or do we need to find an alternative for you? How late is too late? That, it's more important to you that we find workarounds, as clunky as they might be, versus waiting to bring up the gap. So looking for your input to help me know how to make decisions on my end.
I think that would vary school by school, so we would each need to.
If someone's talking, I can't hear them.
Sorry, I was saying it would vary school by school. I think all of us would need to reach out to our treasury office to let them know, because they all explain to us what they do, but we still need to.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the question. I actually, because I work at a grad professional school, we don't actually have any grant funds to come from the coordinating board. So I'm not terribly familiar anymore with the funding system. So do most of you pay the students and then are reimbursed? Is that how it works? Okay. So the question Charles is asking is just, at what point is your business office or your accounting office going to come to you and go, hello, where's the money? And are there deadlines on your campus that you're aware of that, that's going to become really problematic for you?
So I think sending out a notice, having worked at 2 schools, I know as long as we communicated with them, so they knew exactly, but that's just 2 schools.
Yeah.
So I think to let everyone know and to ask that question, raise your hand if there's going to be an issue, and make sure you let the people that need to know what's going on.
Yeah, could there be a survey done to where schools could input, because we typically do our first draw like middle of October. So in October 4th, go live date wouldn't impact us.
Yeah.
We would be fine.
Yeah.
But because sometimes our controller's office is screaming at us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, cash flow. Yeah. Did you hear that, Charles?
I heard a bit. It sounds like that's one of the things, and this is definitely the kind of place where kind of looking for the Financial Aid Advisory Committee to provide as much as they can as representatives for the institutions, because we're not able to bring all 143 institutions to the table. To the best of your knowledge, do you feel that the vast majority of institutions operate on a disperse and get refunded system?
Yes, yeah. I've worked at 3 places. I'm not aware of any, unless you guys are, that don't operate on a reimbursement basis, that we are dispersing to the students and then looking to get reimbursed by the state. I think that's pretty standard practice. Amy said they do a first drawdown sort of in October. I know for some of our other programs, not through the coordinating board, we don't do a drawdown until mid to end of October, partly because nobody wants to do it in September, because the fiscal year just started and we're still trying to figure out year end. So I think that would be pretty common from a state school perspective. I don't know about private or even community colleges. Anyone else on Zoom have anything that's different at your school?
Is there anyone from the private college sector that could speak to what they believe is happening in the private sector?
I'm not with the private sector, I'm with TSTC. And I'm going to have to speak with our financial people, because our allocation was a lot bigger this year and we have already dispersed the majority of the funds. We should finish here by probably the middle of next week. And it is quite a bit more than we have dispersed in the past. So I've got to find out, how long it's that will be okay without having that money to come in, because I thought that I would be able to go ahead and do the request next week for it. I wasn't aware that we were going to have a delay.
Yeah. And Jackie, you thought what I thought too. So it's just we're running into a couple little bumps. And I'm just trying to figure out kind of where do we go. But it sounds like you also have the disperse, get reimbursed concept. And that, it's a matter of kind of timing wise. And you mentioned you were thinking next week as to when you were going to be able to put that request in. And so hopefully if we're within a week or two of that, ideally, but it's like the general concept I'm getting from what I hear from folks is, late September, early October, not ideal, but still works. Like if we were running into something that it was going to be like late October before it was going to work, then that would be creating more issues along that line.
I wonder if a memo or, something from the coordinating board that we could provide to our business offices that says, hey, here's what's going on. Obviously you can't swear on a, implementation date, but something that's like, it's not because your financial aid office hasn't done the request. That's not what's going on. It's, the request process is being pushed just a little bit. Here's our expectation. Bear with us. I think that would make a difference instead of it just coming from the financial aid director. That's just a thought.
Great.
That's a great
Is
idea.
there anyone from the, sorry, go ahead, Jackie.
I was just saying, I think that's a great idea. I think that would be very helpful.
Okay. Is there anyone from the private sector that could let me know whether or not these concepts are wildly misaligned with the private sector?
Charles, this is Cecilia. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Small private college. I think we're okay with the delay because we usually disperse late.
Okay.
So we're good.
Great. Well, thank you for letting me steal this unexpected piece of your time to get the feedback. It's very helpful to hear. And gives me a good perspective, and definitely something that we can start talking internally on what's the best way to just make sure that everybody knows, you know, we're working towards it, and we're going to get there. But this year, there might be a little bit of a delay in that, you know, first request that you can make. And so we'll see what we can do to get something out there to just acknowledge that piece of the puzzle.
All right, thank you, Charles, again, appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. I think, again, we've shifted the items on the agenda a little bit. We are going to go to the Taspa organization update. Dee Dee is not with us today, but Denise Welch has been gracious enough to agree to give us a quick update on Taspa. Denise is the president-elect of Taspa, so she will be the president in a few short weeks. So Denise, really appreciate you pitching today and give us your update.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. The update is our conference is on us. It is approaching very quickly, October 4th through the 6th. We're doing a joint conference this year with our SWASFA friends, which is for those of you who are not in the financial aid community, that's our regional association of student financial aid administrators. This is a 5-state area, and we're doing a joint conference this year in the Dallas-Fort Worth area at the Hyatt Regency, DFW. And we are really excited. We've got a action-packed agenda as well as NASFA speakers, and we are not real sure about the Department of Ed at this point. Of course, with potential shutdown looming, we are probably, if we get anything, we'll get probably the federal update via a webcast, which will be pre-recorded. So we won't have anything specifically new or be able to ask questions to the Department of Ed, but we will have our NASFA friends that have been so gracious and so wonderful about keeping us in the loop as far as the Department of Ed goes and acting as a go-between between the Financial Aid Committee and the community and the Department of Education. And they have lobbying on our behalf. We do have some pre-conference workshops. We have our new aid officers workshop that starts on Monday. And of that week, I believe that would be the 2nd. And we also have some pre-conference workshops. We have a financial aid administrator. Okay, I got to think about what the acronym means. The financial aid. Okay, it's the FAAC exam preparation workshop, which is a certification for certified financial aid administrators. So if you're interested in being certified as a financial aid administrator, there's a pre-exam workshop that will be hosted pre-conference, as well as some NASFA U credentialing. So we have a really good conference planned, and we hope that all of our financial aid friends can join us in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Thank you, Denise.
Sure, thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks. All right, moving on, we are going to circle back to the data collection subcommittee update. Again, Dee Dee's not able to be with us, so Deshay, who sits on that committee, is going to give us an update on that subcommittee's activity.
Thank you again. I have some notes. There was a handout that was in a package that went through all of the agenda items that we discussed on July 27th. So we met over the summer and talked about a few items. We went over the FY 24 and 25 allocation along with the 23-24 program guidelines. We gave an update about GAP along with some recent upcoming memos and personnel changes. At this point, the 24-25 allocations have all been posted. They are available on the Student Financial Aid page website. They were emailed out to all of the directors. So you should have received what your allocations are. If you are participating in TEOG and TEG, along with the work study programs, you saw that your allocations were over the 2-year biennium. So you had an idea of what it looked like for fiscal year 24, as well as for fiscal year 25. If you are participating in the work study program, so if you opted into college work study or mentorship, keep in mind that if you opted into both programs, college work study as well as mentorship, a portion of that allocation that you're receiving, because it was only one allocation, a portion of that allocation, you need at least 25% of that allocation needs to go to your mentorship program. That is different. Normally you were having allocations that were separate. So you would have like a separate mentorship allocation and a separate work study allocation, and that's not the case going forward. So again, keep in mind that you saw one allocation, and if you are participating in both programs, you have to provide a portion of your work study allocation to your mentorship program. The last allocation we released were for the private institutions, and that was TEG. But again, those are all posted and ready to go. We also went over the changes that happened for 23-24 in the program guidelines. Just want to do a real quick, just to make sure everyone caught all those changes. We updated the priority EFC for Texas grants as well as TEOG. We also put in the TEOG program guidelines, we updated that because we did release the program guidelines a little bit earlier before the legislation ended. And so there was a change to the TEOG program. So for community colleges, we did have to go back and clarify that the Pell removal that restricted you from using Pell does not happen until the next year. So it's going to be 24-25 is when you can actually not use Pell as part of your actual tuition and required fees that you need to match. So just make sure that you've gone back and discarded any old program guidelines and use the most updated recent one. TEG for you private institutions, we did clarify how the exceptional need calculation is used. There was a change for exceptional need. So if you haven't already looked at that, you want to make sure that you go back and look at how exceptional need is applied to undergraduate students, because it's no longer just the dollar value. It is now the EFC that's less than or equal to 50% of the Pell, and the Pell is based on that award year that you're using. So again, private institutions, make sure that you go back and read that for clarification. TASK, we just updated the award amount. So for schools who participate in our TASK program, the award amount went from $10,000 to $15,000 for college access loan. For those of you who, that is everybody. So let me just say that because college access loan is part of chapter 22. So as Charles had explained, that when you are completing your 24-25, all of your program participation agreements, you should have already received that covers these next 2 years. Any programs that are within chapter 21 and 22, unless it required you to opt in or out, you are required to participate in that program. We have gotten a lot of questions about the college access loan, specifically because of the new changes to the college access loan, which do require a manageable debt calculation. And I'm always going to plug this in. If you were not at the webcast yesterday, we did go over extensively about the manageable debt calculation. So again, we will post that. But we did talk about that in the program guidelines, that effective 9/1, that any student that submits an application to the coordinating board on 9/1 will be subject to the manageable debt calculation. And so we provided that information in the program guidelines to make sure that everyone was aware. Like I said, we just did a webcast over what that actually looked like, because a lot of schools were uncertain of how the coordinating board determined whether or not a loan would be reduced, a loan amount would be reduced or canceled. But that alert box was in there. We made no changes to the forward program. We did update the critical shortage listing for educational aid exemption. We did put out a clarification because we did have to make a change after TEA had made a change to their critical shortage list. So make sure that you have the most recent copy of that program guideline. Educational bilingual education, we updated the participation list, included 5 more schools. There's only a handful of schools who actually are able to participate in bilingual education. So just make sure that you know whether or not you're one of those schools. And of course, I can't stress this enough, the work study program went through a lot of changes. So just make sure you understand that and read those program guidelines for it. Like I said, we went through an updated GAP, which I'm not going to go back through again because I did already talk about that. We did talk about Texas First and transfer grant. You've already heard about transfer grants through Charles. So just to make those aware about Texas First, which is another program that was in legislation from the 87th legislative session and also made some changes in the 88th legislative session. This pertained to students who are graduating early and were able to graduate under the Texas First diploma, and it's specific to our public institutions. Prior to 9/1, it only applied, there was a scholarship that applied only for 10 schools in which students could attend and get a scholarship to, and those were considered our research and emerging schools. That was prior to 9/1. Effective 9/1, that went to all public institutions of higher education. We will be sending out information related to Texas First and making certain that all public institutions have an idea of what that means to them as far as the program. Charles just mentioned about Texas First going through GAP, so we will give out some resource materials, especially since there was only 10 schools who really had more information about it versus the state of Texas for the other public institutions. So we're going to send out a fact sheet. We're going to do some webcasts about it. I will be discussing it at the Tasfa conference to make people aware, and then we will have a webcast on October 11th that will also be discussing about Texas First to ensure that people get the information that's needed to understand what does this mean at your institution, especially if a student comes with a state credit certificate. So for the program, a student who graduates early is required to get a state credit certificate that's depending upon the number of hours in which that they graduated early, 1 or 2. And that dollar value is equal to what the Texas grant award amount is. They will take that certificate usually to the school. What we have currently been doing is uploading rosters through Move It, so all schools have the ability to know every student who's ever received a certificate, making it easier for validation purposes. We will continue that practice for all public institutions. So that seems to be a much easier way to validate that this dollar value is correct in coming from the coordinating board. So again, we'll send out more information related to Texas First. There are rules already in chapter 22 about Texas First, so I highly encourage you just to go out and read about the program. There are some modified rules that are coming down the pipeline. Right now, it still has emerging and researching institutions. However, we'll be changing to all public institutions of higher education. That is the only change that happened after 9/1. Everything else remains the same about the program. So at least you can get yourself familiarized about that program. We talked about personnel activity that happened, which again, we already kind of explained, and then whatever recent memos came out at that particular point in time. So those were the things that we discussed at that data collection subcommittee. I highly recommend if anyone's ever interested in being a part of that committee. I know Scott Pinsky is part of it. I think Rachelle is, Dee Dee. There's a couple of other committee members that are also part of the collection committee. So we always welcome new members. We do have a robust agenda and do get a lot of great information that comes out of that committee to make sure to bring forward to the larger committee. A lot of the decisions are made based upon what the institutions provide back to us. So I'm happy to continue to serve on that committee, but I will take any questions if people have them. Awesome, that means I did a great job.
It's flawless. That's what it means.
Oh, a question.
One question in the chat from Jackie. She said, did you say 25% for mentorship?
Yes, at least, at a minimum, 25% of your allocation. So if you participate in both programs, college work study and mentorship, at a minimum, you need to transfer 25% of that allocation to mentorship. And that is in the rules and in guidelines.
Okay, Awesome. Thank you, Deshay. All right. Next on our agenda, we are going to talk about leadership positions for the upcoming year for the Financial Aid Advisory Committee. We have 3 that we need to decide on, vote on today. Again, you can nominate yourself or you can nominate a friend who is a committee member. So first, the Taspa subcommittee. So again, this is the chair of the subcommittee, which has worked closely with Leah and her team, other coordinating board staff on the development, improvements, changes to the Taspa, the e-Taspa and the paper Taspa. So I'll just open the floor for nominations for subcommittee chair. Heather Fountain has nominated herself, which just saved me from doing it. So thank you, Heather. We appreciate that. Any other nominations? All right. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion that we approve Heather as the chair of the Tasfa subcommittee for this year. Motion to approve. All right. Do I have a second? Scott, thank you. All right. All those in favor, just give me a yay or a or a yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. All those opposed. All right, good. Thank you. Heather, thank you. We really do appreciate you volunteering for that. I was going to volunteer you, but I didn't have to. So there you go. All right. Thank you so much, Heather. All right. Next is the legislative subcommittee. So again, this is just a person who will keep an eye out on legislative issues at state level, and then make sure this group gets an update on those. We do coordinate that with the chair of the legislative committee of the Taspa Association. So any nominations for the legislative subcommittee?
I'll nominate myself.
Scott Lipinski has nominated himself, which kept me from doing it. Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate you. In a minute, we're gonna do chair, and this is what the chair does. The chair figures out who should do. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Any other nominations for legislative subcommittee? All right. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion that we approve Scott Lipinski as the the chair of that subcommittee, legislative subcommittee.
This is Lisa Ann, so moved.
Excellent. Lisa, Rachel seconds. All those in favor, give me a yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. All those opposed? Excellent. Scott, thank you very much for volunteering.
Already on there for Taspa, so I'm.
I started to just say, who is here that's already on the Taspa Association committee for that? So that's fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Keeping us up to date on that. All right. And finally, we need a vice chair for the Financial Aid Advisory Committee. Again, this person would sort of work with me this year to sort of see how everything is done. And then come next September would become the chair of the FAAC. Any nominations for the vice chair? Everybody all at the same time. That's great. I have not spoken with this person, so I'm completely putting her on the spot, and I apologize. She may never speak to me again, but I would like to nominate Cecilia Jones. Cecilia, feel free to decline the nomination. No one will think less of you. I'm pretty sure I've nominated you for several things in your life.
Yes, you have. But I'm okay with it.
Excellent. All right. The reason I keep nominating you is because you're good. I hope you know that.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Yes. So any other nominations for our vice chair? All right. Oh, the shade's nominating people now. Pointing at people in the room. I'm coming off. So I mean, I think yes. Well, that kind of thing. So can I have a motion that Cecilia Jones be approved as our vice chair for the coming year?
Motion to approve.
Amy has given us the motion. Do I have a second? We have 5 seconds. Okay, all the seconds. Excellent. See, Cecilia, everybody wants you. All those in favor, give me a yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? All right. Congrats, my friend. I'll be in touch. Cecilia,
Okay.
really appreciate you
You're welcome.
stepping up to do that. I didn't make you do it. I just, recommended you do it. So I do appreciate your graciousness and taking that on. All right. Thanks everyone for that. And next we need to talk about our upcoming meetings for this year. The year that's wrapping up, we did a sort of hybrid approach in terms of method for meetings. So we did 2 meetings in person, 2 meetings virtually. And again, just to be clear, even if we have a meeting in person, anyone can join virtually. So it's not that, if you can't come to Austin and we have a quote in-person meeting, you can't attend. We always, have both options. So what we need to decide as a group is for the coming year, for our next 4 meetings, do we want to do that hybrid approach again, 2 in person, 2 virtually? Do we want to do all in person? Or do we want to do all virtual? And I think, obviously we're open for discussion, anyone's thoughts or ideas about that. I do think Deshay and I were visiting a little bit at the break, and I think budgets being what they are and travel, the difficulty and how busy we all are particularly this fall and spring. I think, there's certainly a justification for having all virtual meetings this next year. But we all are aware that there are some enhancements to the proceedings when we can see each other in person and interact. So, so I don't want to negate that. I think, we love to see each other. So that's great. But any discussion or thoughts on whether you'd like to do hybrid, virtual, in person? Okay, Jackie votes for hybrid. I like that. All right, so several people in this room are nodding.
Yeah.
Virtual works for everybody?
Virtual's fine. It's too hard to get from El Paso there and back in the day.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
And we're an hour earlier, so my meeting started at 8:30.
Oh, yeah. All right, so that's Lisa's vote. Leah, did you have any thoughts or considerations we should think of as we consider?
No, I mean, I think that what y'all have discussed seems logical. Again, travel is always very difficult. I think the thing to keep in mind, and we brought this up with the newer members, is just the expectation that people actually are able to join, because if you don't for 2 in a row, then we have to replace you on the committee. And over the years, things happen, people can't attend the meetings, but it is so valuable to get people's dialogue and conversations. And so my only observation has been that the in-person meetings tend to have more dialogue because you're kind of in a group setting and there's more collaboration. But as time has gone by with the changes to the virtual world, I'm seeing a lot more participation. So I'm not concerned about having it virtually. I think it's just, we really want you here. So again, the changes and the recommendations that the committee makes are so valuable. So anytime people can't join, then we lose those pieces there. So that's kind of my input. I think that if we want to do virtual, and then we can always consider something for the future, that's fine. But I do think that traveling can be difficult, and especially like you said with budget concerns and just how much people have going on lately, that it helps to have it remotely. So I think we should try that if people are on board, and then again we can revisit later if we want to do in person.
Okay, thanks, Leah. So unless there are objections or any other discussion, we will sort of move forward with that as our plan, that we will have virtual meetings this year. Our normal meeting dates are the timeframes that we usually meet. We do have a meeting coming up December 7th. That's a virtual meeting. So hope that's on your calendar. And then after that, we usually meet March, June, September, and then December. And so that's our 4 meetings a year. So what we've been doing, I say normally, like we have to do it that way, we don't, but the last several years, we've tried to meet on the first Thursday of those months, March, June, September, and December, except in September when the first Thursday is usually not a good idea. So we do it the second Thursday, which is today. So if you don't mind just checking your calendars, I know calendars can change. We're talking about a year in advance, but if you wouldn't mind just taking a look at these dates, December 7th again is already on the calendar. March 7th of 2024 would be our next meeting. And again, these will all be virtual. June the 6th, September 12th, and then December 7th. So what I'm looking for today is just, did I miss a conference that I'm running over or something? I'm putting a date when we have another meeting that a lot of people are probably going to be at, something big like that. Anybody see anything?
We're hitting spring break in March 7th. So EPISD, and I mean, a lot of schools are out the 4th through the 15th.
Okay, so March.
Did you say March?
Just saying.
That's the day after Hug Conference.
Day after Hug Conference, okay, good to know.
And you said
right.
December what, 2024?
December 5th, I apologize, I think I said the 7th, I'm so sorry. Not meeting on Saturday, I promise.
Thank you.
December 5th, yeah, no problem, Ethan. Just you on Saturday, no, not you, I'm just kidding.
I
No.
never give the Saturdays up for at school.
Yeah, December 5th was the date. And I
Okay.
know in March, spring break can be challenging. If anyone wants to make a recommendation for a different day or a better day, I'm happy,
Can we do April, or does that mess everybody up?
Instead of March,
Yeah, like April 4th.
I got no problem with that.
I mean, may conflict with you.
I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just because it leaves such a narrow
Yeah,
amount
between
of space
April and
between
June.
April and June that it's hard to find enough presentations and discussion topics because it's kind of like, oh yeah, we just met. But we could, I think in the past, and Deshay is the expert on this, but we had tried to do in February at one point, but because it's so difficult for institutions because of school starting and all of that, we had moved it to March. But question on the ISD part, for your participation, is your school closed on that week on the 5th, or is
We're
it just
closed
in
the
general?
4th through the 15th, EPISD. So that's Sal and I.
And this is Erica Ramos. For me, that the current March date works fine, the 7th. Our spring break isn't until the week after that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it sounds like there was also mention if we started, if we tried to move it to the 1st of April, I think there's an Elysian conference the beginning of April that might.
Until the 7th.
What about like March 21st, right after all the spring breaks?
I'm sorry, Lisa, can you say that again?
What about like March 21st, right after all spring breaks have finished? Just a thought. I mean, I can miss a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anyone have spring break that last? I saw like such a wide range last year. I mean, it was like
Crazy.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
entire month of March.
That's almost what a state calendar should be for, is everybody has the same spring break, but it's on purpose so that everybody goes to South Padre at the same time.
So I think also February 29th is being tossed around here as an option, sort of the week before school starts.
I'm sorry, totally meet on leap day. Yes.
Come on,
That's
Lisa.
like good karma.
It is, for real. Okay, well, let's tentatively put it on March 7th. We will follow up with everyone with the, more secure list of dates. But anything else for the June 6th, September 12th, or December 5th? Everybody good so far? Okay, awesome. And again, I think back to Leah's point about the virtual versus in person, I think, you know, the virtual meetings are gonna work as long as we, as committee members, are, as long as we're engaged, as long as we're talking, as long as our cameras are on and we're engaging with each other and we're not, you know, well, I'm not there really, so I can do something else. You know, like we really, as long as we can keep that up and keep that momentum, then I think the virtual meetings, and as Leah said, we've all gotten pretty darn good at that over the last few years. So I appreciate everyone's commitment to sort of making that a priority. Last thing, if you have ideas for agenda topics, speakers, other things you want us to discuss, I said to the new members yesterday in our orientation, you know, we've had external speakers that are not, you know, financial aid people. We've had, I think we've had some speakers along a professional development lines. You know, we've had lots of different things. And so anything that you think, if you have a creative thought about what you would like to see, what you think the people on this committee could benefit from, or a very specific agenda topic that you want us to bring to the coordinating board, please don't hesitate to let me know, or you can let Leah know, and we will try to coordinate a speaker, get someone in to, you know, to lead us through a discussion of that. But I really would appreciate any ideas, thoughts that you have about future agenda items. And unless I've forgotten something, we're done. So I really, really appreciate everybody, our friends on Zoom. Thank you so much from, you know, really, really appreciate all your support, especially our new members. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you to those of you who volunteered or were volunteered to have a leadership position. Really appreciate you. I hope everybody has great travels, and can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? To adjourn. Rachel, and I'll second. No, somebody second, don't me, not me. All right, Scott, Jackie, everybody seconds. Everybody, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Hey. Okay. I'm really trying to figure this out. Yeah, 10:15. So